Father's Day giveaway to the Sacagawea Hotel. Stay and play giveaway to go golfing. Stay there at the historic Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks. So stick around for that. What we got in the show today, plenty. Game 3 last night, 123-109 to the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, the Warriors without Kevin Durant. The Warriors without Klay Thompson as well for that game. Kevin Durant has already been ruled out for Game 4. So he is not going to be making the short turnaround, just one day off for the between the home games here in Oakland. So tomorrow night is Game 4. He will not be available to that. Klay Thompson is, I guess Klay is hopeful, and he is questionable at the moment, although they are optimistic that it's going to work out. So we will see. I anticipate Klay Thompson playing, with all of my great NBA insider and medical knowledge that I have. I expect Klay Thompson to be there. We also are looking forward about a half an hour. John Sullivan going to join us. Our old friend John Sullivan coming in for Beer Bands and Public Lands Brew Fest. This is like the first party of the summer in the city of Missoula down there at Caras Park. It's a fundraiser. It's a fun fundraiser, emphasis on fun, and we will talk to him about all the things that are going on this Saturday at Caras Park for the Brew Fest. Excuse me, this Friday, tomorrow, from 5 to 9, the Brew Fest tomorrow evening. So looking forward to that. We also going to talk a little bit about Hero Sports FCS All-Americans, who's there and also who ain't there. And as I said, top of the hour, looking forward to this. Jamara Coe, the subject of our ESPN Roundtable. Obviously, Jamara Coe, a fantastic 2 years on the floor for the University of Montana. A great guy off the floor, fun to talk to. Just great perspective from Jamara Coe. Obviously, also endured a couple of different injuries. Cut short his senior season, did not play. So that's part of the turmoil that the University of Montana men's team went through. Even though they did punch their ticket to a second consecutive NC2A tournament, but great to sit down with him, and he's loving it right now. Done with school, done with basketball in the collegiate sense, gets to work out, got to get ready to try and get into the fray in the European League is what his kind of hope is, what he's working on right now, but sticking around town and doing it in Missoula. So a great conversation with him. We'll have that for you at 5 o'clock. Coulter, by the way, we are on ESPN Radio, as you know. We're also on SWX Montana television across the state of Montana. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate that. And around the world on YouTube. Check it out. YouTube. Tutel Nuanez is the channel. You go check us out there. We appreciate that as well. Interesting ball game last night. Without Klay Thompson there, this team looked significantly different. People talk about it's easy to see the greatness of Kevin Durant. It's often easy to see the greatness of Steph Curry. And everybody talks about, of course, the shooting and really the defense of Klay Thompson. And I think people understand how good he is. But when you watched Golden State play without him, which they're almost never without him, this is the first postseason game that he's ever missed with the Warriors, you see a very different team, even with Boogie Cousins, even with Draymond Green out there, from what you normally see. And I also have to say, huge credit to the Toronto Raptors for going in there and not being scared of the moment, not being intimidated by being on the road against a team, again, in their fifth finals, and taking it to the Golden State Warriors. Across the board, when the news came out about 20 minutes before tip that Klay Thompson was not going to play, everybody, Paul Pierce, Chauncey Billups, Jalen Rose, Michelle Beadle, everybody picked the Toronto Raptors to win this game. I was surprised at that. Obviously, it changes the complexion of the game drastically, but knowing that Toronto had to win that game in a lot of people's minds to stay in this series, needing to win it and winning it are two different things, even with two big men down for Golden State. I didn't think that Toronto I still would have picked Golden State to win this game, even with the knowledge of Klay Thompson being out, and a convincing victory by Toronto. I mean, they were up by as many as 17 kind of late in this game, and Golden State would work their way back into it, but Toronto continued to expand that thing out, and I give them a ton of credit. Very, very impressive. 123 points. It's a lot of offense for the Toronto Raptors.
I knew you were on your date last night. I wanted to text you so bad, but I didn't want to ruin it for you. But
shut my phone off. I knew that this was going to happen, and I shut my phone off. I went home. I watched the game from 11 to about 12:30 a.m. this morning. That's when I saw this.
Toronto is just so tough. They don't waste time and energy complaining or crying. They sprint back on defense, and they just play tough. They don't give up any easy buckets. So often when the Warriors are just bearing down on you, you know when Draymond gets the rebound and he initiates the fast break, and he'll just come 200 miles per hour straight downhill right at you, and he makes you make a decision, and you're either going to collapse or you're going to fade, and it sets them up. It sets Golden State up for such an efficient situation because he's either going to dish to a cutting teammate or he's going to finish in the lane, get an and one. It's almost a no-win situation for the defense. It's almost a no-lose situation for Golden State.
Yeah.
Toronto, first of all, they beat you back to the spot almost always, so transition is hard to come by. And
did you hear Nick Nurse before the game when he says, get back? I don't know. We don't buy into this. Like, professional athletes aren't listening to you tell them, hey, you got to slide better in the defensive rotation or whatever. But pre-game, he's like, doesn't matter who you're guarding. Nothing matters. Don't worry about where your man is. Get back, build the wall, and go out from there.
Exactly.
That's what he said, and that's what they did.
And their wall doesn't waver either. That's what's so impressive is so often you bite, so often you get out of the way, so often you commit the dumb foul. They don't. They just engage you. There's so many times when Toronto gets tipped balls with all the customary stuff that Golden State has made everybody in the NBA their heads spin for 5 years, and somehow Toronto will be half a step ahead and they'll tip a ball, or they'll be straight up on defense and not give up that layup that the Warriors have hit over and over and over again. Just so impressed by all the little things that Toronto does. But everybody talks about little things, right? Well, Toronto has missed, I think, what were they last night? 20 of 21. So they've missed 2 free throws in the last 2 games. I think they've only missed 3 free throws as a team this entire series. That's a little thing that's keeping them in these games. And then the fact that they have all these veterans. I mean, I'm so impressed. This is what I've always talking about as far as are you ready for the playoffs? And also, when you know it's at the end of the line, this is the last series. You got nothing left to save up for. You don't have to pace yourself whatsoever. It's just so impactful, the minutes. Like, Marc Gasol can go to his elite level when it's now or never. Serge Ibaka would never play like he played last night if this was the middle of March. But now that this is it, this is the finals, Serge Ibaka looks like Serge Ibaka from 5 years ago. I mean, he was swatting every shot. He's given them such good minutes. I looked at the box score. I was like, oh, he only had 6 points? Because it felt like he absolutely dominated the second half of that game. I mean, he was so good on defense. Not only the shots he blocked, but the shots he altered. And the other guy that you just have to give note to, because, I mean, obviously Kawhi Leonard's gotten a ton of headlines in this series. And
30 last night.
The great play of the veteran trio of Serge Ibaka, Danny Green, and Marc Gasol. Those 3 guys have all gone to a different level, a throwback level, if you will.
Danny Green was 6 of 10 last night from beyond the arc, and at one point 6 of 7. He actually missed his last 3, but he filled it up and was completely impressive.
I can't remember the exact stat in terms of the number of threes, but there's been 35 guys that have shot as many threes in the NBA Finals as Danny Green has. He's the only guy that's shot at least that many threes that's shooting over 50% in the NBA Finals. And that's what I'm talking about. Danny Green right now on February 17th on a Thursday game against the Miami Heat is a below-average NBA player. But when it's the NBA Finals and all Danny Green's got to do is get loose for one night and all he's got to do is catch it and shoot it, that's why veterans dominate this time of year, because he still can go to that level for a brief moment in time. But to finish this point, though, the last guy, I mean, and obviously Siakam has been the breakout player in the NBA, in my opinion, this year. I mean, he's a guy that went from literally knowing nothing about him, I don't think anybody knew anything about him, to being a legitimate borderline all-star who's had huge games in the playoffs. All that said, though, the number one guy last night is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's redefining his career. Kyle Lowry was one of the most polarizing figures in the NBA. Kyle Lowry is the guy that's an all-star every year, yet
talking about polarizing as a player. Not
polarizing as a player, right. He's the guy that makes the all-star team pretty much every year, yet no one ranks him in their top 25 players. He's the guy that is always in the all-star mix and never in the all-NBA mix. He's the guy that sometimes he's good, and sometimes you're like, this guy is awful.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
He has been nothing but great in the last 2 series of the NBA in this playoffs. I mean, he was great in the conference finals, and he's been outstanding. Not only with his toughness, his on-ball defense, the way he harasses Steph Curry, the way he chases Steph Curry around. But then if he's gonna step up and make 5 threes like he did last night, I mean, he hit run-killing dagger after dagger. He hit 4 different threes that never let Golden State seize any momentum. I gotta tell you, I was a Kyle Lowry hater until about 3 weeks ago. I thought Kyle Lowry was overrated. I thought he was just terrible. I can't say I love him, but I got a lot of respect for Kyle Lowry. I like watching him play now.
I want to flip the script a little bit over to the Golden State Warriors. Boogie Cousins and Draymond Green needed to be the 2 and the 3 in this game. Draymond Green was, but he's still, he's a triple-double factory because he does so many things really well. 17 points, only 7 rebounds and 4 assists for Draymond Green. He was kept very much in check, and DeMarcus Cousins was flat out bad. 4 points, 1 of 7 shooting, could not just look, for as great as he looked and mobile and back to form in game 2, he looked very clunky. He looked like all of a sudden, yes, I had a bunch of time off and I don't know what I'm doing around here.
He just looked completely drained.
And it's so weird. Yeah, and maybe he was drained. I don't know. Here's the thing. This is the game that I will come back to. Well, I'll hold on. Steph Curry is unstoppable. And
he's particularly unstoppable when you're daring him to do what they did last night. Basically, they said they were going to trap him high, and then when he got loose, not waste any energy doing anything else.
Do what you do. Just do what you do.
Basically, what they said is, we are confident that our 7 will outscore you. And basically, that was what it came down to. We were laughing watching the game where we kept saying, well, what's the actual over-under for Steph Curry for the Warriors to win this game? And it went from 45 to 50 to 55 to 60. Yes. By the end, it was like, well, man, Steph's going to drop 50 and they're going to lose by 20.
In the first 8 minutes of this game, where I think he had like 10 or 12 points, I went, this isn't an anomaly. He's going to score 50 tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Got close, got to 45. But he's got 47. The rest of the starters count up 25, 36 points. He outscored the other 4 guys that started with him on the floor by 11. You know what that is? Recipes for success for the Toronto Raptors.
100%.
And so I was in awe. I marvel at Steph Curry. Okay, there is not a player that I would rather watch play and do what he does than Steph Curry. His handle, his movement, his ability to get to the spot, obviously his shooting, but even his work around the rim, which I think is really underrated at times by people, when he knows it's his show and he's the guy and he's got to go get it done, and when the defense is taking away some things but not everything from him to concentrate on others, it's borderline miraculous. It is like watching the Harlem Globetrotters in an actual NBA Finals basketball game, what he's able to do, and I love it. And that said, without Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, the Golden State Warriors are in real trouble. And unless if they may get Klay Thompson back again, it sounds like he was close in Game 3, so you might presume, as I'm going to presume, that probably he's there for Game 4. That's a big, big deal. But also, other guys got to be better. I mean, Toronto basically, let's say this, Toronto executed, particularly defensively, their game plan. And forced the non-Steph Currys on the Golden State Warriors into subpar basketball games. I mean, Sean Livingston's one of the great mid-range players in the NBA. He's got 11 points last night and, is 4 points last night and is 1 of 4 from the field. I mean, just nothing to offer. Quinn Cook ends up playing like 25 minutes because they have to try and find some offense from somewhere, but also thereby the defense suffered greatly for Golden State. They had 96 points through the third quarter. 32 points a quarter they gave up in their own barn in the finals. That's not going to get it done.
Well, you have to have the head of the snake for the style of defense that they run. If they don't have, that's why Klay Thompson is perhaps not the best. I mean, he's certainly not the best player on the team, but he's perhaps, I don't know, it's between him and Steph Curry in terms of who's the most important. because Klay Thompson is the guy that can play on the ball. And then that makes Steph Curry a good defensive player when he otherwise isn't that good, because Steph playing on the ball is not good. He's going to get overwhelmed.
And is it a surprise then that Kyle Lowry goes and has a signature game last night?
That's a good point. The other thing I was struck by last night, was that the Warriors are always the team that's in the situation where they never have to play a guy that's in over his head. They never have to play the guy that's overwhelmed.
Right.
And that's it's a complete role reversal. Like last night, the Raptors essentially played 7 guys. They played their starters, which is Siakam, Leonard, Gasol, Lowry, and Green, and then they played Ibaka and Fred VanVleet. Those 7, no one is overmatched at any point in this series. Mm-hmm. But when you don't have when you don't have Kevin Durant and you don't have Klay Thompson, then all of a sudden, when you're playing McKinney or Jerebko Jerebko should be better. I don't know what's going. I mean, he's so up and down. But regardless,
he doesn't play if it's
regardless though, exactly what you're saying is right on. I mean, like Serge Ibaka right now, the level he's playing at is better than anybody that the Warriors are bringing off the bench. I mean, at this point, Serge Ibaka is better than Sean Livingston or DeMarcus Cousins, just in terms of the effect he has on the game. That's not a situation the Warriors have ever been in. Usually, the Warriors can dip into the pool, and it doesn't matter if they're playing Kevon Looney. Well, when he's out, that kills you. It doesn't matter. It used to not matter if you're playing Andrew Bogut. Well, last night, Andrew Bogut looked slow. I mean, Steve Kerr was playing lineups we hadn't seen before. I don't know if Jordan Bell's played the 4 his whole career in the NBA, and he was playing Jordan Bell and Andrew Bogut simultaneously. That's just mismatch city. Because if you run any sort of stuff on the block and you get Pascal Siakam or Marc Gasol isolated, they're going to win that matchup every single time. And I thought it's interesting to watch the Warriors sort of flounder because they have no idea how to navigate that situation. They don't know how to navigate. They're never the team that's having to play a guy like McKinney, who when he's in the game, the other team's just like, let's go at him.
This is maybe the biggest compliment that I can pay the Warriors, and it might not be fully accurate. In fact, it's probably not true, okay, because it's the NBA and there's a ton of great players and a lot of good teams. But my impression, okay, this is just me now, when they're at full strength, when they win, it's to be expected, and when they lose, it's on them. It's not credit to the other team that they went out and played a great game. Something didn't go right. They weren't ready to go, whatever it is. In this series, right here, right now, is the Toronto Raptors, who are the better basketball team,
100%,
with the better players in total, doing what they want to do to the Golden State Warriors. Now,
and that's why
there's only one game that I would say that about. The first game I thought was a very good contest.
But the Raptors controlled the first game too, though. They never folded.
Yeah,
it's a completely different situation what we're watching right now, because even when the Cavs came back from the 3-1 deficit, like they were pulling miraculous shots. I mean, Kyrie Irving had one of the great 3-game stretches in the history of the NBA. I mean, he was going crazy. He's scoring 40 points a game. And right now, it's not taking those superhuman individual efforts for the Raptors to win these games. That's why I was proud of what we just did to lead this show. We did 12 minutes about what the Raptors did well last night instead of what everybody else on the cross from coast to coast today did, which was, how big of trouble are the Warriors in if Kevin Durant doesn't come back? How big of trouble are the Warriors in if Clay's out? What are the Warriors' ship is sinking?
And it makes sense to do that because they've been to 4 straight and won 3 of the last 4.
I get it. But here's what I'm saying. I get that this would be a different series if the Warriors were at full strength. There's no question. Of
course.
But I also think that the Raptors deserve all the credit in the world. And to me, when you watch the game, it's so much about the mentality. I was thinking this last night. Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant make a world of difference. There's no doubt. But when the ball swings to you and you're at Oracle Arena and the crowd last night was electric. They were ready to just explode. And when the ball swings to you and you are Kyle Lowry and you've been haunted by the demons that you've been haunted by your whole career, and I get that it's different if Klay Thompson's closing out on you or if it's Sean Livingston closing out on you, but it's not that much different. It's not that much different when Andre Iguodala's hand is in your face. You're going to have a hand in your face. And he had a hand in his face, and he made those shots. He deserves all the credit in the world for making those shots. The Raptors deserve all the credit in the world for sprinting back on defense. That's just what I led with. Draymond Green is the guy who makes the whole thing go, and they have not let him make the whole thing go whatsoever.
I said that Draymond Green had a down game. I don't know that he had a down game as much as he was. I think he was the center piece, the focal point of the Toronto Raptors. he's the guy that they keyed on, and so therefore they prevented him from doing. I mean, he still had a fine game. He didn't play poorly per se, but he did not have the game that, in terms of the numbers that he often has, and certainly that he's had through the first couple of games of this series. The other thing, though, is this. You've been without Kevin Durant now, what will be the 9th game in a row. Then you lose Klay Thompson. You know what has to happen? Guys have to step up. I'm really disappointed in Shaun Livingston from last night. Shaun Livingston is a veteran player who's been with this team, who's been in the NBA Finals, and was just a non-factor in a game that he got a start in because they were down. You have to be able to come up big in that moment. And who's coming up right now? It's Fred VanVleet. It's Serge Ibaka. It's Denny Green. It's the role players of the Toronto Raptors that are elevating their game, and they're at full strength. It's not the role players, quote-unquote role players, of the Golden State Warriors who the Warriors need now more than ever with the injury situation that they're in, who just were not – I'm not going to say they weren't prepared, but were not able to elevate their game to the level that they needed to match that. And so Steph Curry, is he ready to go? Looks like it. Draymond Green, I would argue, was also ready to go,
Totally.
Knew what he needed to do, but other guys were just ineffectual.
What is toughness in the NBA? It's so much easier to discern in football because it's a full contact physical sport. But what is toughness in the NBA? To me, the Raptors are just personifying what toughness is. It's getting back on defense. Watch Marc Gasol. Watch Marc Gasol when he just doesn't have the ball. He sprints all the way back to the circle and then creeps out and just sticks his hands straight up in the air, and he stands there. He is ready to go. He's ready. If Draymond straight form tackles him, he's in. And he's going to get up, and he's not going to go crazy. He's not going to show emotion. That's why the Raptors, to me, are so appealing to watch. We were talking, our good friend Jen was in here earlier, who used to work here in Missoula Broadcasting Company. She's a big basketball fan, and she was saying it's so refreshing watching the Raptors because they don't belly aching whine the whole time. They just play.
Right.
And it is so refreshing. Serge Ibaka just runs rim to rim. He never gets engaged in emotional outbursts. He's never getting engaged in all Draymond stuff. Siakam is the same way. Gasol the same way. Lowry, he's a little bit emotional, but they need a little bit of it.
Well,
right?
let me talk.
And that's the other thing. And that's why I think Fred VanVleet is the unsung hero of this whole thing, because Fred VanVleet right now is playing 30-plus minutes a game in the NBA Finals. This guy's undrafted, and he's not scared at all.
Yeah, he is not. You're right. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. About 10 minutes, John Sullivan from Beers, Bands, and Public Lands Brewfest, which is tomorrow, is going to join us in studio. Quickly on the Kyle Lowry, maybe a little bit of whining or whatever. But, I mean, you had to see this whole thing transpire, and then what the fallout. He dives into the stands, and then he's back, and he's just yelling at the referees. He's like, what are you doing? What's going on? And they finally showed the wide angle, and the fans seated in the front row, you're like, well, who's this guy, this anonymous person that's got courtside seats to the NBA Finals game, who didn't even get hit, shoves Kyle Lowry, like straight pushes him and yells in his face. And Kyle Lowry's like, well, what are you doing? Goes to the referee, reasonably so, and you're like, who is this guy? Come to find out, it's Mark Stevens, who is an investor of the Golden State Warriors, who is, I don't know what sort of minority type of stake that he has in the Golden State Warriors, but enough to get courtside seats and to be a guy who is, in fact, like he's on the board of the team, is shoving Kyle Lowry. I was shocked, and I completely disagreed with Jeff Van Gundy in the moment, even though I love Jeff Van Gundy. I told you this before I expressed the depth of my love for Jeff Van Gundy. It is total and complete. But I could not believe that he said, well, of course he's going to shove him. He just got run into at full speed. What else would you do? I'm like, first of all, he didn't run into this guy. It was a couple seats down. And second of all, you can't shove a player no matter what. And as a board member or somebody associated with the team, insane. Anyway, he's being fined $500,000 and is being given a 1-year ban. The rest of this finals, of course, and all of next year, however long it goes, he's not allowed in the building. How about that? That is coming down. And I think that if this was just a guy, just a fan, you kick him out, you say, see you later. But as an actual, like, on the payroll associate of the team, came down hard, and I think accurately on Mark Stevens on this. That was insane. That was so stupid.
I've watched it a bunch of times and I can't see it, but maybe I'm just looking in the wrong spot.
There was the only angle that I saw it at was, you know how they do like the surveillance camera that's like parked in the ceiling of the building? That's the only one that I saw it on. And
I mean, how bad is it?
I mean, it's not bad in terms of like, it's not like Kyle Lowry's not in danger of being hurt or something. He didn't get punched, but he gets straight up shoved and cursed in his face by just a guy sitting here because he's diving to go after a basketball. Like he would be skewered today, Kyle Lowry, if he's just like, oh, I'm not jumping in there after that.
Right.
You know, he does what anybody should do in that situation. You're out there, you're playing hard, and then a fan just reaches over and shoves you and yells at your face like you somehow like put them out. You know, you're the one that got the great seats. This is what you should want to have happen. In any case, yeah. And I've never heard or seen something like this when you talk about an actual associate of the team doing something like this, and then the subsequent like ban and fine. This is inconsequential to the series, but it is unique and singular to my knowledge of something like this ever happening, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I just thought it was just crazy. Like I've seen a lot of fans do a whole lot worse than what he did. But when I found out who it was, my head exploded. I was like, "What are you work for you're an owner, a stakeholder, and you're out of your mind." But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's to be expected. I don't know.
Last point on this: did you watch Draymond Green's press conference after the game?
Mm-mm. It was 12:30 in the morning.
It was hilarious. There's no panic in Draymond Green whatsoever. Yeah. He basically sat up there and laughed. Somebody said, "Draymond, what are you going to do to get this thing back on the rails?" And he said, "Well, we're going to win Game 4. We're going to win Game 5. We're going to win Game 6, and then we're going to celebrate."
Yeah, I did hear him say that we're going to win it. Or the quote, I guess I saw that.
Yeah.
Win it.
So I just find it interesting. I do think that with all the credit we've given the Raptors over the last half an hour, they deserve all of it. But I do think that there's a certain element of calm, and I think that's where the Warriors just have such a distinct advantage in the fact that they've been in 5 straight NBA Finals, because they can seriously sit here and say, "Hey, 2-1 is nothing. If we get Clay back, it'll be going back to Toronto, 2-2, and if we get KD back, good luck." But regardless, if they get a piece back, the pendulum swings back in their favor.
No doubt.
No mistake, though. Probably the greatest win in the history of the Toronto Raptors last night, right? I mean, winning in Oakland to go up 2-1. The
greatest win for Toronto was Game 1. The greatest basketball win was yesterday. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, we'll have John Sullivan in here right after this. Talk to us about the Brew Fest tomorrow night. It's officially summer, people. That's what happens in Western Montana. So we'll get into that. The podcast is available on the TuneIn Radio app. It's available on iTunes. It's available on Spotify. It's available on the station website. It's available everywhere. You can go listen to it, review it, rate it. Please do. We'd love you to do it. We want to provide it to you when you want to listen to it. Okay? It is there. It's the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. The Wingate. They got all kinds of great things over there. Stuff for kids, stuff for adults, stuff for family, stuff for business people.
Oftentimes when you're traveling for business, you might notice that your business travel rates, your corporate rates, they get jacked up a little bit. And if you're tired of that, fear not when you choose to stay at the Wingate by Wyndham. While many other hotels raise corporate travel rates during the summer, the Wingate is committed to keeping their rates the same year-round for all qualified customers. If you're a business traveler who is tired of summer rate increases, the Wingate by Wyndham can help you all summer and all year. Wingate by Wyndham offers great year-round rates for corporate travelers with the bonuses of extra Wingate reward points, and they upgrade regular business guests for no charge whenever possible. Give Kim or Alicia a call at 541-8000 today. That's 541-8000 to learn more. Let the Wingate by Wyndham in Missoula make you feel at home even when you're not.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris, online at kurtzpolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
Jayco and Rangich Brothers are teaming up once again. We take pride in being Western Montana's #1 Jayco dealer and strive to continually offer you the best quality, pricing, and reliability. To celebrate the arrival of summer, we are offering June hot buys. From RVs to parts and service, we got you covered. Save big on Jayco J-Flight SLX, 264 bunkhouse travel trailer, Sleep 7 starting at only $14,995 with payments as low as $149 per month OAC. Don't miss our June hot buys going on now. Only where a handshake means something. Rangich Brothers RV Center.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Caleb Hill is going pro. The former University of Montana quarterback and tight end was drafted in the 36th round of the Major League Baseball draft on Thursday afternoon by the Boston Red Sox. The 6'5", 230-pounder came to UM from Blinn Junior College with the expectation to compete for the starting job under center. When he couldn't beat out Reese Phillips or Gress Jensen, he switched to tight end for his final season. As a left-handed pitcher playing for Texas Premier Baseball, Hill had Division I scholarship offers as a sophomore in high school. He is just the 8th Grizzly to play professional baseball, according to Baseball Reference. He's the most recent since 1970. UM dropped baseball in 1972.
Montana State added more mass to its offensive line on Thursday with the addition of Nevada transfer Dylan Potter. The 6'6", 305-pounder comes to MSU with 3 seasons left to play. The Elmira, Oregon native was the Oregon 4A heavyweight wrestling state champion as a prep senior. He also earned first-team All-League honors as an offensive and defensive lineman, garnering him a 2-star recruiting ranking from 24/7 Sports.
And finally, the Montana Coaches Association named its Spring Sports MCA Coaches of the Year earlier this week. Among the selections includes Missoula Loyola boys and girls golf coach Michael Trudnowski, Missoula Sentinel boys track and field coach Craig Metler, and Sealy Swan girls track coach Michael Haynes. What's better than beer? Beer in public. Better than beer in public. Beer in public for public lands, for crying out loud. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Missoula, and online at KurtzPolaris.com. You can find us on Twitter at Gus Tutel, at 1029 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT. We are happy now to welcome in a couple guests in studio from the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, John Sullivan and Kevin Farron, to talk to us about the Beer Bands and Public Lands Brew Fest tomorrow night. Guys, how are you? Good to have you in here. Thanks for coming
thanks
by.
for having us. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's talk first of all about the organization. I think a lot of people are starting to become more and more aware about Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. First of all, what are your respective roles in the organization? What do you do? And also, what is the purpose of it in general?
I'm the chairman of the Montana chapter, so it's a volunteer position where my daily paying job usually gets in my way of my BHA duties. But it's a fantastic organization. Been a volunteer for I was a member for a lot of years and watched the organization grow, and the mission really struck home with my values as a outdoorsman, a hunter, and a fisherman, and the way they did things.
Yeah.
And so I volunteered to help, and I've been doing it for a while. And then Kevin, go ahead and.
Hey, my name is Kevin Farron. I am the chapter coordinator for the Montana chapter. So I'm a staffer for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We started in 2004 around a campfire in Oregon. We've grown consistently ever since, really taken off in the last 3 or 4 years. Right now we're at close to 40,000 members nationwide, and we're pretty proud that we have over 3,000 of those members right here in Montana.
And I was going to say, because Missoula has become a real, almost a capital for the organization, right? A lot of the national work and certainly the statewide work comes out of the western side of the state.
Yeah, no doubt. The national organization is headquartered in Missoula, so that we get a little advantage that way. But we are growing across Montana. We have representatives in all different districts of the state. We got membership's growing like crazy in Bozeman area, Lewistown, Great Falls, new leadership in the Billings area. So yeah, we're real proud of the things that we're doing in Montana. All the way out in Miles City, we got you guys all the way that far out who are just kicking butt out that
Wisdom, Dillon.
Obviously, plenty of passion for this around the state of Montana and public lands, water, wildlife, all that stuff. That's one of the reasons we live here, right? Absolutely. But Kevin, just tell us some of the stuff that specifically you guys are doing to help maintain that sort of stuff, and what some of the missions of just the organization as a whole.
Yeah, so we are a legislative advocacy group. So what we do is try to educate and engage and motivate folks to start caring and taking action on some of our public lands issues that are facing us. So a couple years ago, the big thing that was hitting home for folks is the threat of losing public lands, or the threat of transferring public lands to state ownership, which comes with just a bag of issues that nobody really wanted to get into. You look at any other state that's done that, and it leads to an outcome that we don't want to see here in Montana or anywhere across the West. So that's just one example. More recently, we were really engaged in the fight to permanently reauthorize the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which up until just a few years ago was a little-known piece of funding that is provided from offshore oil and gas drilling royalties. And that money goes back into this fund, which then goes to states to increase access, pay for even things like community ballparks, fishing access sites, things like that. And that program was in jeopardy, and it actually expired last September. So we led the push to get that thing reauthorized, but not just temporarily, permanently, which is a huge win for us. Now, the next big push we're working on that LWCF issue is the fight to fund it, right? Because that's step one, but there's no promised funding for it. So we're working with the entire Montana delegation to make sure that our voices are heard and that the push to fully fund it with dedicated funding goes through in D.C.
Something that is not surprising to anyone are people who like to be outdoors, like to hunt, fish, care about public lands, also like music and beer. Like, these things go together all the time.
Natural fit.
Yes,
for
these
sure.
These are three of the pillars of existence, as far as I'm concerned. And you're bringing it all together tomorrow in Caras Park, 5 to 9. How many years has this been going on now? This has been going on a little. This is the fourth year tomorrow.
Yep.
Beer Bands and Public Lands Brew Fest down at Caras Park, 5 to 9. Kind of a little bit of a different setup maybe this year. $20 to go or to sample there. Mm-hmm. You get a steel mug with that, and your first 3 drinks with that. right? Yep. And then after that, every $5 is an additional 2 drinks after that, and it's obviously a fundraiser for backcountry hunters and anglers. But tell us a little bit about what's going to be going on this year beyond some of the obvious and some of the cool stuff about it.
Yeah, so we're really excited. We have 23 breweries and cideries from Montana who will be down there. So tons of different diversity and options. Each one of those breweries or cideries is bringing a flagship beer or a cider, and then also something special, a seasonal offering that we might not have had the chance to try. Some of these breweries are smaller ones, too, that don't actually distribute, so you might not have had a chance to try them anywhere. So that's exciting. We have 2 different live bands playing. We have Jackson Holte and the Highway Patrol, and the Idle Ranch Hands is the second band. Something cool about that, a local guy here, Sam Nassett, he's a big BHA member, and he's going to be playing with the Idle Ranch Hands. Just kind of a little fun fact there. We have 6 local food carts coming down. We're going to have some burn barrels out to kind of give it that campfire smoke feel.
Yeah, weather's a little iffy right
Yeah,
now.
and also the weather.
We trust that Montanans can handle it and come down and get some beer.
Yeah,
exactly.
You light a fire, have some cold beer, they're going to show up, right?
It's going to be even better. You don't want a fire when it's 90 for crying out loud. You want to be worth something.
Yep.
Yeah, well, last year we did this in April, and we had to shovel out the pavilion before we started. So we were like, all right, let's move it back.
We thought we'd move it. And then
thought June would be good, but, man, it's calling for snow again tomorrow. But, hey, if you have weekend plans, cancel them. Come on down, drink some beer, stay warm, have some fun with us.
I remember I went last year. I remember how cold it was last year. It's still fun, though.
Oh, yeah.
John, tell us, you guys got a big raffle, too, right? I remember the last couple of years, I can't remember which year was which, but there was a sweet boat that was up for raffle a couple years ago, maybe, and then there was a Yeti cooler one of the years. And so, what are some of the cool prizes this year?
Well, we've got great prizes, from some of the brands that support us: Onyx Maps, Sitka, Traeger Grills, Seek Outside Tent, First Light, Montana Fly Company, Yeti's going to be there again, Black Coffee Roasting Company, Stone Glacier Backpacks, Native Eyewear. Every one of those brands is going to you're going to have an opportunity to win gear from each one of them. I think we got some bigger prizes that are kind of wrapped up too, though, right?
So
like
some of the
Sitka kit and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we have a full Sitka kit, full First Light kit. We have a real nice Traeger grill that we're going to be giving away tomorrow night. With some of the other big prizes, we have a Seek Outside teepee and titanium wood stove. I don't know if you guys seen those, but they're pretty awesome. Yeah. We also have one of the Stone Glacier's new backpacking tents. So just some new exciting offerings, and a really great raffle product.
You could have just said everything and saved us the time. You know what I mean?
You could walk away with everything you need to survive Montana during the hunting season.
Well, I'll tell you what I love about this is it just seems to me it's just such an overwhelmingly obvious thing that no matter where you come from, what your perspectives are, and things like that, having public land access, preserving the lands that we have for future generations, for the enjoyment of ourselves and the hunting and the angling and all of those things, the hiking and so forth, is just good. It's just a good thing all the way around. And but also, you got to make sure that it stays that way. That does continue, particularly legislatively, like you were saying. And so go down there tomorrow, Karis Park. Beer Bands and Public Lands 4th Annual Brew Fest, 5 to 9 p.m. tomorrow for an obviously great cause. And, yes, it's okay to have fun while you're doing the right thing, though it doesn't always have to be eating your vegetables. You can have a good time on your own. John Sullivan, Kevin Farron, guys, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. And thanks for my public landowner hat, which I'm proudly wearing here. That's very good. We appreciate it very much. Quick break. On the other side, we will return. Guess what we're going to get into? Hero Sports, FCS All-Americans. Who'd they pick, who'd they leave off, and why? Coulter will tell you next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes, too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
This This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Summer's here and the time is right for real fruit smoothies at Florence Coffee Company. Offered in flavors like strawberry, mango, peach, wild berry, and banana, and made with no artificial colors or flavors. Florence Coffee's fruit smoothies are the perfect summer treat. Enjoy a real fruit smoothie today at any Flowco locations or visit FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky. Florence Coffee Company.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel and Nuanez.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Well, that was fun. Our thanks to John Sullivan and Kevin Farron for stopping by, filling us in on what's good. Beer bans in public lands, to name 3 things. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. We coming to you on SWX Montana Television across the state of Montana and on YouTube. Tutel Nuanez. That's the channel. You look it up, you'll find us. It will be wonderful for you. Coulter, you wanted to talk about Hero Sports FCS All-Americans yesterday or Tuesday, whatever it was. The top 25 preseason polls came out both for Athlon and Hero. And so now we're talking about individual players at a nationwide level in the FCS, some of the preseason awards and all that kind of stuff. What do you got for us?
Well, several Montana Grizzlies and Montana State Bobcats made the preseason list, unsurprisingly. Troy Anderson was an all-purpose selection, first team defensively, which I thought that was interesting considering he has only played a few snaps defensively. Now, given his talent, obviously he deserves to be on some form of an All-American list. And obviously the Hero Sports guys talked to all the right people to basically vote him as a first-team All-American.
Yeah.
But he's a first-team guy. And Mitch Brott from Montana State, also a preseason All-American. He was on the second team as an offensive tackle. And Isaiah Infante is a third-team selection from Montana State. And then as far as Montana goes, Dante Olson, no surprise, surefire first-team All-American preseason. The other one I thought was interesting is Jace Lewis. Jace Lewis was selected as a special teams player, which I'm actually not so sure how much special teams Jace Lewis is going to play this year. As a junior, I think he's going to be, kind of the other man in the middle with Dante Olson. He had a great year last year, so I think it's more of a nod to the fact that he was productive last year, and they just wanted to get him up on the All-American team because he's probably primed to have a pretty big year.
Yeah.
Sammy Akim, unsurprisingly, lands on the first team as well. Or excuse me, not the first team. Sammy Akim was on the third team, All-American. And I thought he maybe could have even slid into a second team selection, but no surprise there, though, given the strong stretch to his sophomore year that he finished with a year ago. And there's one more Grizzly. Hold on, I got to find him here. Oh, nope, that's it. 3-3. So, but the other things that struck me about this list were, first of all, the depth of running back that's going to exist in the Big Sky Conference this year, because Ifanse was a third team preseason selection. Isaiah Ifanse had a great freshman year a year ago. He set Montana State's all-time rushing record by a freshman, first rookie to ever go over 1,000 yards at Montana State. And
I think he has gotten lost in this mix a little bit to me.
He has. Isaiah Ifanse's lights out last year.
He was so good, absolutely outstanding, and for all of the discussion, for a lot of different reasons, one was the superlative play, and one was the sort of oddness and singular sort of weirdness that was Troy Anderson at quarterback. 98% just went offensively anyway, went to him and what was going on there. And what Isaiah Ifanse brought to the table as a running back was absolutely outstanding. As a freshman, for crying out loud, it was unbelievable.
And that's what strikes me, though, is the fact that Isaiah Ifanse is great, and he deserves to be a third-team All-American. But there's 3 Big Sky running backs that landed on the second team, 2 of whom are the same grade as Ifanse. So that's how good the running backs right now in the Big Sky are. Elijah Dotson from Sac State, who had a little bit of elevated statistics a year ago because he had that gigantic game in Missoula where he rushed for like 260 yards.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was some gap scheme stuff that Montana was just out of gaps, and Dotson had 2 different 75-yard runs in the first half that really boosted his stats in that game. Regardless, he was the Big Sky's leading rusher last year, so he totally deserves to be on the list, even with Sac State's struggles. Alonzo Gilliam was one of the great dual-threat running backs in the country last year as a redshirt freshman at UC Davis. Mm-hmm. He rushed for over 800 yards, but he also caught almost 45 passes and had over 600 yards receiving. And then Josh Davis was the Jerry Rice winner. I mean, he was the freshman of the year. And that's what's so striking about it is, like you say, Ifanse might be lost in the shuffle a little bit, but also I think that he is the third best running back in his own class in this league. That's not to say that he's not one of the best sophomore running backs in the country. I just think that probably the 3 best sophomore running backs in the country play in the Big Sky Conference. I mean, Josh Davis was lights out. Weber State was not good on offense last year. Josh Davis was their offense. I mean, he was their offense, and he was also such a dynamic guy in the return game too. I mean, this guy was, I think, second in the league in rushing. He scored 12 touchdowns for an offense that did not score very many touchdowns, and he was durable and fast. And I mean, this is a guy. That's the part about this, though. Alonzo Gilliam was the Northern California Player of the Year coming out of high school. Josh Davis, the Utah Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school. Isaiah Ifanse, the Washington Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school. It's a developing trend where coaches are finding these maybe a little bit undersized running backs that are incredibly productive. And I think that Josh Davis and Isaiah Ifanse's recruitment was very similar. Come to Montana State or Weber State, play in a run-heavy offense, and you will be the bell cow back. You'll be the guy right away. And those guys have proved that their production in high school translates because they were absolutely lights out a year ago. But this list was littered with Big Sky guys on both offense and defense. A couple other things that really struck me. First of all, when I was looking at the first team defense, Jabril Cox from North Dakota State is just different than everybody I saw last year. I mean, the guy is a freak. What Jeff Choate said in the pregame or in his press conference leading up to Montana State's game against North Dakota State, where he said this guy could play anywhere in the country. This guy could play. After seeing him live and in person twice last year, I totally agree. And when I saw his name on this list, I said, well, of course he's a first-team All-American. And then I saw his class. He's still only a junior. I mean, this guy is a guy that, for real, if he has if he's the Missouri Valley Defensive Player of the Year, he's a first-team All-American again, he could come out early.
Send him to the league.
I mean, he could come out early, for sure. The other class that kind of made me chuckle was Christian Roseboom from South Dakota State. He's been their inside linebacker since, it seems like he's one of those guys, it seems like it's been 10 years. And he's now finally a senior. But the kid, I remember seeing him his first time in Montana State as a true freshman 3 years ago. And, I mean, he's so good sideline to sideline. Those are the type of guys, though, like coaches are always talking about facilities. We need better facilities. We need upgraded facilities. Those are the type of guys you can get. Because Christian Roseboom, he could be playing in the Big Ten. Jabril Cox could be playing at Notre Dame. But he chooses North Dakota State not just because of the facilities. It's because of the winning and all that, but also because of the momentum of the program. That's something you can sell guys, and that's when you start to get these sort of outside-the-box recruits outside your level. So definitely an interesting list, and always gives us something to talk about. For those wondering, the first-team All-American quarterback, Jake Mayer from UC Davis. So another nod for him. And, the Big Sky, the Missouri Valley, and the Colonial Athletic Association. Those are the three leagues in the FCS right now, and they're littered all over these lists. I don't know what happened in the Southland, because the Southland was certainly in the mix with those three powerhouse leagues forever. But Sam Houston State's not quite as good as they once were. Stephen F. Austin's been in a ton of transition. Central Arkansas, same thing. McNeese State, a far cry from what they were when they were coming. I mean, they were a perennial playoff contender in the 90s and 2000s, and they just haven't really been able to translate that. And the Southland is just taking a step back. I'm not really sure why, but the rest of these lists, not much controversy here, except for I think it's funny that Montana State had three guys that played on offense last year. I know Troy Anderson was selected as the defensive guy, but he hasn't had much defensive production. But three guys from an offense that most people thought was flawed a year ago, and no guys from the defense. And I just find it I find it fascinating and somewhat maddening as somebody that covers these guys up close and personal, that I think Montana State has three nationally elite defensive players not named Troy Anderson. Bryce Dirk, Jacquay Allen, and Braden Conkle. And I thought these guys all got slighted in the all-league stuff last year, and I think that's a direct correlation to this. I mean, when you're making these national lists, you're not diving all the way into saying, oh, this honorable mention all Big Sky safety, which is what Jacquay Allen was. Oh, we should put him on our first-team All-American list. It's not happening. I just thought it was so egregious by the Big Sky coaches last year that Jacquay Allen was an honorable mention all-league guy. He led the league in picks, and he was easily the best coverage guy in the back end at safety.
This is never going to be gotten right in the Big Sky Conference, ever, because you don't play five other teams in the regular season every single year. You barely play half your own league in the Big Sky Conference. So guess what? A bunch of teams aren't seeing a bunch of guys, and that's the way it goes. And it's too bad. It's just a fact. And
it's so true.
Something. I mean, it needs to be fixed, man.
It's got to be fixed. And like last year, Weber State and Eastern Washington and UC Davis split the title three ways, and Eastern Washington and Weber State just absolutely. I mean, it was the best of Weber State and Eastern Washington on the defensive team last year. I mean, you had guys like, no offense to Keenan Williams. Keenan Williams was a good player at Eastern Washington. But Keenan Williams was hurt for the second half of the year last year. He got first-team All-League defensive end. How's that possible? Mm-hmm. How's the guy that led the league in sacks, Bryce Dirk, and the guy who was second in the league in sacks, Mason Moye from UC Davis, on the second team? It's just bad marketing for your league. I mean, you just need the guy who looks like Bryce Dirk, who had 20 tackles for loss, to be a first-team All-League guy so he can be up for All-American honors. I mean, you watch Mason Moye. Mason Moye won that Grizz game by himself. He had 4 sacks in Washington Grizzly Stadium. You have to get the right guys on the right teams, and it's the same thing with Sammy Akem being on the third team. I mean, again, there's a proximity bias because we watch Sammy Akem all the time, but I just refuse to believe. I mean, there was 9 receivers on the first 2 teams. I don't believe that Sammy Akem is not in the top 9 receivers in the FCS. I don't believe it.
Well, that's because you shook his hand.
Stood next to him.
Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 straight ahead. Jamara Coe. He is the subject of this week's ESPN Roundtable. Extended conversation with the former Montana center next.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Town Pump knows it's a beer and wine type of day. That's why we're happy to offer Modelo 12 packs for $11.99, and we've got your wine covered with our Sutter Home 750 milliliter bottles for a low $3.99. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain. They still need to get to work. They need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. Caleb Hill is going pro. How about that? Former University of Montana quarterback and tight end was drafted in the 36th round of the Major League Baseball draft on Thursday afternoon by the Boston Red Sox. At least he's going to a good team. The 6'5", 230-pounder came from from Blinn Junior College with the expectation to compete for the starting job under center. When he couldn't beat out Reese Phillips or Gress Jensen, he switched to tight end for his final season. As a left-handed pitcher playing for Texas Premier Baseball, Hill had Division I scholarships offers as a sophomore in high school. He is just the 8th Grizzly to play professional baseball, according to Baseball Reference, and the most recent since 1970. University of Montana dropped baseball in 1972.
Montana State football added more mass its offensive line Thursday with the addition of Nevada transfer Dylan Potter. The 6'6", 305-pounder comes to MSU with 3 seasons left to play. The Elmira, Oregon native was the Oregon 4A heavyweight wrestling state champion as a prep senior. He also earned first-team All-League honors on the offensive and defensive lines, garnering him a 2-star recruiting ranking by 24/7 Sports.
And finally, the Montana Coaches Association named its Spring Sports MCA Coaches of the Year earlier this week. Among the selections included Missoula Loyola boys and girls golf coach Michael Trudnowski, Missoula Sentinels boys track and field coach Craig Metler, and Sealy Swan girls track coach Michael Haynes.
They always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hate and say we changing, look, we made it. Yeah, we made it. That was never
Jamar Coe,
no, I'm jumping out of Bentley.
center, 2 years for the University of Montana men's basketball team. And he is around town, working out, getting ready, trying to make it into the professional ranks, likely in Europe. And he was good enough to come over and sit down with us and be part of our roundtable, which we do every week. We do the ESPN Roundtable in partnership with SkylineSportsMT.com. Airs every Wednesday at noon on ESPN Radio, every Thursday at 5 right here for here around the state on SWX Montana Television and on the radio again. And then as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series at SkylineSportsMT.com. It's a very cool feature, and we're happy to have Jamar on with it. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at KurtzPolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, you can check it out on the podcast. The podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, Spotify, station website, all over the place. Subscribe to it, rate it, review it, like it, love it. Do all of the things. And then listen, check it out. We appreciate that. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Yeah, Colter, the roundtable, we have really enjoyed doing it. You get a chance to have a long-form conversation, find out more about the person that you're sitting in front of beyond just, the game that they might be playing or coaching or whatever it might be. Find out some of the backstory and all that. And Jamar Coe, very interesting guy, a guy who is from Southern California, moved around a lot, San Diego, around the greater L.A. basin, Orange County, et cetera, and then eventually made his way to the University of Montana. And you'll hear, about, that path, that transition in this piece. But certainly fun to talk to him, and a guy who you and I think, both certainly enjoyed talking to, but have liked for a while because he certainly is he's the type of guy who seems like he wants to get into whatever's going on at the places that he is. You know what I mean? He wants to find out, what's life like in Missoula, Montana, the hiking, the beer making, the brewing, all that kind of stuff, and fishing and so forth and so on, and stuff that maybe isn't as prevalent in Southern California where he comes from, and getting into all that, and now going possibly to Europe. Well, he's been to Europe already, but maybe going back again and all those things. So I always find those people interesting who are interested in what's going on kind of in the wider world, and he certainly is that guy. It was fun to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed Jamar. I think that he has a different way of looking at the world. I mean that in the best way. I think he sees the world with his eyes wide open. I think he is a very engaged guy. And, I got to give him a lot of credit for having, the courage to try a lot of the things that Montana has to offer and not just do it as lip service, not just do it every once in a while, but to actually engage in the community. I mean, during the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, for example, I saw Jamar all the time. I saw him every single day at the film festival. When I was going to movies, he's going to movies. He enjoys living the cultured life that Missoula has to offer in a culture that's a lot different than the one he grew up in. So I think that's cool. I think that when guys completely absorb and enjoy the experience that they have in Montana, I think that's the thing that I enjoy about what we do more than anything else is hearing. It's like we always say, one of my favorite questions is asking guys from Southern California, what did you think Montana was going to be like before you came to Montana, and what do you think now? It's always fascinating to hear what they have to say. It's always great.
It's such a one-way street, too, because when you go to – certainly any place that you go that you haven't been to is going to have 1,000 things that you didn't know are going to be there. But also, if you've never been to California, if you've never been to Los Angeles, you still know what it is. They export themselves. It's the entertainment capital of the world and all that stuff. You have this idea of it. It's hard to imagine. I mean, it would be like saying, hey, I'm going to Azerbaijan. Nothing. It's just darkness. Nothing even comes into my head. I don't know. Is it trees? Is it fields? Is it mountains? Is it plains? I don't know. What's the climate like? Nothing. No idea. That's what happens for some people. Well, actually, a lot of people that come to Montana, no matter where or why they're coming here. It is our ESPN Roundtable. It is presented by Paradise Falls. Here you go.
We are happy to welcome in to the ESPN Roundtable former University of Montana basketball player and current legend, Jamar Coe. Jamar, how are you, man? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me.
Jamar, let's start with the present. Is that weird to hear former Grizzly basketball player, former University of Montana student, now just an autonomous human being who kind of gets to do with his time what he wants to do? Is that cool to you? Do you like that right now?
Oh yeah, I'm loving it right now. I think it's just kind of sinking in. So I'm just trying to enjoy it.
People don't really understand, right, how much time
all of your time is spoken for and regimented when you're a Division I athlete in pretty much any sport, but especially, in a sport like basketball, the demands on your time that you have, all of a sudden you're done playing basketball and you graduate, you don't have the school side of it as well. What was that like? Was that weird? Was it weird to adjust to it?
I think, while I was still in school, I couldn't wait to be done. So, everything was it was really slow. So when I did graduate, I just had to just kind of sit back and just actually let it sink in and just acknowledge that I do have all this time and just have to find things to do just to fill in. It definitely is a big transition just because, being a Division I athlete, your days are pretty much scheduled for you. And, for all day, there's something you have to be doing. Even in your free time, you could be doing homework or getting extra work in or whatever it is. So it feels really good, though, right now.
Give us a day in the life. When do you have to wake up? Take us through this schedule. Like when you were healthy, how did it all play out every day?
When I was playing?
Yeah.
I'd usually wake up, and we usually had weights before class. So I had class at 9:30, so we probably had weights at 8. So 9:30, I'd have a class, about an hour and 20 minutes, and then from there, usually another class, actually. So from 9:30 to 1-ish, you probably have class, and we have practice at 2:30 or 3 every day. And then you try to find some time in there to get work in, extra work in, with the individuals with the coach or, whatever it is. And then after that, we eat. Some of the guys have study hall, and then, do it again the next day.
You went to high school your junior and senior year in Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Yes.
Then you went to Cal State Fullerton in Orange County. What was your time like at Fullerton?
It was good. I really enjoyed it. I was a young guy and just trying to figure out the ropes. And, it was an interesting situation just because we weren't winning. And I wasn't that happy with my situation. So I had to get out of it. But I really did enjoy it. I looked at it like it was a learning experience and just try to take everything from there and bring it here and apply it.
Take us through the process that got you to Montana. When did Montana first land on your radar, and what was that recruitment process like? What did you like about the University of Montana?
Okay, so they reached out to me when I put my name in the transfer portal, and I didn't really take it that seriously at first, just because it's Montana, and coming from California, you really don't hear anything about Montana, and so I was just like whatever. And then they convinced me to take a visit, so I came on my visit, and I really liked it. I got here, and it wasn't like what I was going to be expecting. So, we got here. The community welcomed me pretty well, and then I went toward the campus and met the coaches and the guys, and I really liked it. I fell in love with it. I just thought it was beautiful. It was during the springtime. So, after that, they put the hardball on me, put the pressure on me, and I committed to them.
Couple things I want to ask you about this. First of all, what were some of the other teams that you were looking at that were trying to recruit you as well?
Montana State was in the mix. A lot of the schools that recruited me before, I think maybe Omaha was in there, Denver. It's a really long time ago, so.
Yeah, as soon as you visit Omaha, it's definitely Montana or Montana State. That's what I know for sure.
Yeah.
You said you didn't really have an idea about Montana because, nobody thinks about Montana that's not in the Northwest in general anyways. Mm-hmm. But then you said also it wasn't like what you expected it to be. What did you expect, and how was it different?
I was really young, so I probably had this really bad image of just tumbleweeds going down or I really don't know. I mean, you see the movies and stuff, and that's kind of what I imagined to be. And I knew it got cold, so I figured it'd be freezing too. But it was a really great surprise when I got here.
Did you have the wrong clothes? Did you have the hat and the gloves and the jacket, and then it's 85?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that warm. It was actually some rain, and I had a hoodie and some sweats on, so I could manage that. But it felt fresh. I really liked that about it.
What's it like? What's it been like just personally living here for you? Because you're obviously a guy that stands out a tremendous amount. I mean, you're going to be the biggest guy in any room you walk into, and in Montana, very few African American people in this community. So, what's it? But also, this is such a welcoming community that embraces
people of all backgrounds, and obviously embraces the Grizz as well. So just on a personal level, what's it been like living here the last couple of years?
Oh, it's been really good. Actually, one of my first weekends here, there was something going on downtown, and I went, and I was acknowledged by a few people, just like who are you? Or I'm not sure if they knew I was coming or what, but there was definitely some acknowledgement there. And then, I really enjoyed my time here. Like, I found things to do. Like, I've done a lot of the stuff that I guess people do here, as far as, fishing and just being outdoors, hunting.
Did you go hunting?
Yeah.
What did you go get?
I didn't shoot anything, but the people I was with, I think they shot an elk.
Yeah?
They got an elk. And it was early. It was like 4:30 in the morning. We were out there. And then when the sun came up, like, there's certain rules or something that they couldn't shoot until a certain time.
Yeah, you can't shoot in the dark.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But
one thing that I've always noticed about you, just in our conversations, is that you are willing to try almost anything. Where's that come from?
I just think that when I knew I was coming to Montana, I was just like, I want to get the whole experience. I'm here for 3 years, so I might as well. And a lot of it, like, is just experience. Like when I get older and I have kids eventually, I want to be able to take them out and like do some of these things, go fishing, and like my parents never did that. So like, because they didn't know how, but like I've seen it and I know how it's done. So even though I'm not a professional at it, I could like probably figure it out. So when I do have kids and we get out there and like let's go camping, I kind of know what's going on.
I got 3 kids. Would you please take them fishing? Because their dad doesn't know anything about how to fish. I can tell you that. The fish have never been safer than when I'm the one casting that line out there. When you look back at your time at the University of Montana as a basketball player, tremendously successful, all-conference player, 2 trips to the NC2A tournament, albeit you couldn't play in the second one due to injury. But when you look back over your time at the University of Montana, in that sense, from a sports, from an athletic standpoint, what comes to your mind? What do you think about?
Honestly, I don't think I could have asked for anything more. Like everything that I wanted to do, I did. Went to tournament, we won a lot of games. I was a big part of it. I commanded attention when I stepped on the court. And, that's really all. There's nothing really else I can ask for, and just as an overall experience, like Montana has been really good to me on the court, off the court, like just making me a better person. Like it's just been really great.
ESPN Roundtable, presented by Paradise Falls. Jamar Coe joining us in studio. And Jamar, the one thing we talked about during the season was just kind of the differences between the Big West and the Big Sky. The Big Sky is such a guard-oriented league, and it seemed like as soon as you realized your junior year just how much you could exert your authority on the block, that was really a turning point for you, and that kind of just propelled you into then becoming an all-conference type guy. So just compare and contrast the leagues for us, and just take us through when you kind of realized, man, I can get position, I can get buckets in this league.
Yeah, it was just really about confidence. Like early on in the year, I was, dealing with like playing time issues, or like I was in and out a lot, and like I can't say that there was 100% confidence in me, just from everybody. But once everybody kind of let me go and let me play, I remember Trav and one of the before a game he was telling the guys like throw him the ball, like we need to give him the ball, and after like that was a turning point for us. Started getting the ball in there, and I started getting more confidence. The team started getting more confidence in me, and we just took off from there.
You come into a team that had a pretty impressive set of guys that were here and established. When you talk about Mike, Bobby Moorhead, Ahmad, and so when you got here and you're in the same class as those guys, but they've been together already and have a reputation already to an extent and a certain chemistry too. What was it like to integrate with those guys?
They welcomed me really well. When I came on my visit, they actually were saying like, "Man, you have to redshirt. Like, you just play this year." I'm like, "No, I got to sit out." And those guys are very selfless. So they were just like, yeah, they want to win too. So, and that's why I think why we work so well, because we all just wanted to win. We didn't really care how it happened, and they just welcomed me with open arms. And you know, I'm a very selfless player as well, so it wasn't like I came in and just like dominated the ball and I wasn't really sharing. Like, I didn't really care if I scored. You know, I was happy to get double teamed and just kick it out and let those guys have wide open shots.
Did you this past season? You had a couple different injuries and were out a couple different stretches, including what turned out to really be the second part of the season and the remainder of what would have been your career in terms of the postseason, the tournament, both the Big Sky and the NC2A. That must have been tremendously difficult. What was the hardest part for you about this season, your senior year?
To tell you the truth, it was probably just dealing with just everybody, just going out places, and you know, everybody asking when I'm gonna be back, and you know how I'm feeling. Like everybody, my family.
So I was the biggest problem that you had this entire year. Yeah.
You know, like I go in there, my teammates asking how I'm feeling, like, and of course everybody's gonna ask. Like it's nature. Like everybody cares, and you know, like I'm respected in this community, so people like want to know, and like I'm a good player, so everybody's like, when you coming back? And I mean, that was really the most difficult part about it, just because like every time I went out, almost like it was like somebody like was asking, or you know, it was kind of exhausting, you know.
How do you feel physically now?
I feel really good. I'm in a really good place right now. I took some time off and just let my body heal, and then I hit the gym again, and I'm just working just to get strong and just be in the best shape possible.
We compared and contrasted the difference between the Big Sky and the Big West, and something that you had to go through most of the last 2 years. You do get positions. You do get the ball on the block. You're going to get hammered. I mean, the wrist stems from a foul. Keeping the wrist healthy, impossible, really, with the way that people play against you. And then basically the end of the knee injury, because I know you had a lingering thing that then turned into something worse. But that came on, I mean, probably the most egregious no call of the season, right? I mean,
that was unbelievable.
He's on a fast break, and the kid from Idaho tackles him into the underneath of the basket, and it was just kind of like, well, that's crazy. That's a no call. But regardless, I mean, you were going to get hurt on that play regardless, because it was just, I mean, honestly, it was probably a dirty foul. But either way, you still want to play basketball.
Yeah.
So what was the mental struggle like, just going through all that and having to endure all the stuff you did, just the constant physicality, and then what makes you want to stick with the game, even though that's the way you've been played against for so long?
Yeah, you know, I do get a pretty good position down there. A lot of times they would just foul, but actually, really, a lot of guys flopped, and you know, I picked up a lot of charges that way. So maybe it's not as physical as we think. But yeah, I definitely had to just work on just being healthy, and like I do want to, you know, have a long career playing professionally. So it is a big thing for me, and yeah, I just have to just keep grinding on that.
I think a lot of people are interested in this portion of a professional, a transition into a professional career, when the path is not nearly as clear as it is, you know, when you're watching on TV or whatever. What's it been like since you've finished knowing that, hey, I want to continue to play basketball, I want to play professionally, and trying to both do the things that you need to do physically and skill-wise to continue to progress and improve and heal and all that stuff. And also, I mean, there's dozens of leagues in dozens of countries around the world that you could go to, starting with the NBA all the way to, I don't know, Azerbaijan or something like that. So how do you navigate, okay, well, this is where I think this is going to be the best for me, and how do you get there?
You have to hire an agent, first of all, and then your agent, hopefully he's experienced, and he or she's experienced and knows what's going on. So me coming out, I didn't really have a clue what was going on. Like, it's such a different world. And I've done a lot of research, just as far as like hiring my agent. I did a lot of research on that, and then just seeing like all the different leagues out there, and like, you know, what the pay is like, and like the competition, like what kind of guys they get in those leagues, how many Americans they allow. So I definitely have had to just research, and a big part of it right now is just being patient, because a lot of those leagues are still playing. They're in the playoffs right now, and so it's a really quiet time, and a lot of people get antsy. like, what's going on, like, calling the agents and all that. So I'm really have to wait for the NBA stuff to get done, and then after that is when the European stuff kind of picks up. And right now I'm really just sitting back, just enjoying my time here while I have it, and just trying to take it one day at a time.
I'm sure you know some guys from your past that have had NBA aspirations. You played with a guy this season in Ahmaad Rory that has NBA aspirations and played against some guys in the Big Sky and otherwise that likely will at least be in the mix to go to the NBA. And it seems like such an interesting deal because there's so much pressure when you're in that mix, right? When Ahmaad declares for the draft, now all eyes are on him, and the spotlight's on him, the scrutiny's on him. It seems like it's almost a little bit more refreshing for a guy like you that knows you have a chance to play professionally, but you're not necessarily chasing this NBA dream. And we talked to Michael Guinea about this too. And, to me, it seems like such an exciting opportunity for a young man who can not only go continue to play a game he loves and play at a high level and make a living doing it, but also you're going to get a chance to travel the world. So how excited are you about that potential prospect?
Yeah, I am really excited about that. And it's really hard to sit here. It's about to be June, and that probably won't happen until October-ish. So it's really hard to sit here and say, I don't know where I'm going to be or, if I'll even go. So, like the NBA stuff is pretty stressful, and I haven't been a part of anything that's gone on lately. And I'm really happy just like to have an opportunity just to be able to go to Europe and play. And I think I can make a decent living doing that. So I just think that that kind of fits me a little bit more, and I'll be in Europe, be able to travel. And just I want to see the world,
Aside from the league itself, which may be the most important thing, but are there if there was a country where you're like, hey, that's a place I'd like to check out, maybe a place I'd like to live, have you thought about what one or two would be like, hey, at the top of your list?
I think there's a lot of places I'd like to see, just like Italy, Spain, France. I think that western side of Europe at first would be good, and then I think the good thing about Europe is everything is pretty close to each other. So, if I get a day or two off, I could go to a different country and just go really quick and then come back. And so I think that's the most exciting part for me is just being in that small little space there.
It's the ESPN Roundtable. Jamara Coe, our guest, former Cal State Fullerton and University of Montana basketball player, aspiring professional basketball player. Sitting with us. Colter asked a great question about where does your interest in everything come from, because you have that. But what was it like for you growing up? And you moved around quite a lot. You were born in San Diego but lived in various communities around the broader, giant footprint that is the Southern California, Los Angeles basin and stuff. What do you remember about your middle and high school days?
Honestly, just remember my mom grinding, just working a lot. It's just me, my mom, my sister, and my grandma. So that's all we had. And I just remember her working overtime every single day. Like I pretty much had to take care of me and my sister. My grandma was working as well. And then, so that's pretty much growing up. That's what I saw, was just somebody just dedicating their life to their kids and just working and trying to make, everything happen for the kids. So I think me growing up, I just saw that, and now I use it. Whenever I want to do something, I do it, and I put my mind to it.
Are you and your sister close?
Yeah, we're all right.
She in California still?
Yeah, she goes to UCLA right now. She's in her second year there.
What does she think, and what does your mom think about you maybe playing professional basketball? You talk to your mom about that and say, hey, this is something that I think I can do, that I think I'd like to do. Does she get excited about that? It seems like she'd be very proud after all the work that she did, to get you to this point, to see you taking that sort of step.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the most important thing to her was me getting through school. So once that happened, we sat on the phone and, she cried, and I was pretty emotional about it. And then, it's just like, okay, what's next? And I think there is a really good opportunity for me to be a professional basketball player and make a really good living on it. So I think that is something that that she's looking forward to, just because she took care of me all the way up to this point, and I feel like it's my turn to do the same and take care of my family. So we're really excited about it.
one of the great parts about your guys' senior class, all four of you guys graduated, and that's maybe an underrated part of this whole journey because not a lot of people get to do that with playing high-level college basketball as well as finishing their degree. But I know you're so focused on the here and the now and what's this next 6 months and this next year look like for you. Have you thought about life after basketball?
I have. I think about it every day. I think it just depends on how like this thing goes for me. Just playing professionally, if I can make a good lengthy career and accumulate some money, I am a business guy. I have a business mind, so I think at some point, it just depends on what kind of situation I'm in. If I need to go and get a job and work, I'll do that. If I feel like I'm in a position maybe to start a business or to be a partner of somebody's, then I would do that. But I think if I did it right, I'd be able to just relax and like just put my money. I'd invest my money and get into real estate, and just I diversify my portfolio is what we say in the business world, and just have a lot of different things going to where I didn't really have to go to work, but if I wanted to do something, then I just do it.
You could start a brewery because you went ahead and you interned, right, with DraftWorks here in town.
Yeah.
Now, you could talk about hunting and fishing all you want. There's nothing more Missoula, Montana than going and being at the brewery. Is that, first of all, that's not something anyways that you would have even been legally allowed to do, not until that that long ago. But what was that like to take yet another step into kind of the culture of the place and also, that sort of a business as well?
And it was awesome. Like, it really opened my eyes just to, like, how a business actually works. And a lot of people don't know because you go there and you have a beer and you don't really know what goes into it. And I actually did 2 internships that summer, one at Doyle Sheehan Majestic, a distribution company here in town. And they kind of, like, worked hand in hand. Like, it was kind of the same realm. So it was really like awesome just to see how everything worked, and it really did just give me like just a different perspective from the business side of things.
What was the thing that maybe surprised you the most in that? Like what when you get into the nuts and bolts and behind the scenes of what a business is, and especially a business like that, which is very hands-on and there's timing to it and it takes time to develop and all that stuff. What did you come away with?
I think it's really just all the moving parts, and most importantly, like the science with the brewery, the science that goes into it, and DraftWorks is a relatively big brewery for Missoula. Like, they do well here, so like just seeing like all those moving parts and like how everybody works together, and then just how the community like supports like a business here was really awesome to see.
ESPN Roundtable presented by Paradise Falls. Paradise Falls, 3621 Brook Street. 18 draft beers. Probably got DraftWorks beer on there right now. 30 big screen TVs. Go check them out. Paradise Falls. Jamar Coe in studio with myself and Ryan Tutel. Jamar, got a couple broad questions for you. This experience, specifically this last year, what was the most challenging part for you?
He already said it was me. He answered that question.
I mean, I guess obviously we say the injuries that I endured, but I don't look at it like it was really. I think things happen, for a reason, and everything is like the way it's meant to be. So it wasn't even like when it happened, like I was just devastated. I was just like, it's just another obstacle that I have to get through, and this is just how it's supposed to be. And like right now, it's hard for me just like transition to this professional realm, like just because I didn't finish the year out, and there's a lot of question marks, behind my name. But I mean, at the same time, like, this is how it's supposed to be. I think God has a plan for me, and it just is what it is.
It was a fascinating season to cover. This is the 13th year I've covered University of Montana men's basketball, and it was one of the most interesting seasons because you guys are such an interesting group of guys. So many different, distinct personalities that are involved in the program, but also, despite a Big Sky championship and another trip to the NCAA tournament, a tumultuous season. And Travis DeCuire talked about it a ton. But on the opposite side of that tumult, there's so much to be proud of. What are you most proud of what you guys accomplished over these last couple of years?
Just, I think the guy, like the four of us, even Donovan Dorsey, like we all graduated, And I think that's what, when you go through this deal, that's really the most important thing. We could really talk about all the wins and trips to the NCAA tournament, but I mean, like, nobody's talked to me about that, you know, since I've been done. Like, it doesn't really matter that much, but everybody's all, yeah, you know, 2 degrees, the 2 internships, like, that's really what it's about, you know. So I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of, just being all my guys, that we grinded this school thing out. And, you know, looking back, like, I really didn't think I was going to be able to do it, and I did, so.
Last thing for you for me, you're here at ESPN Radio, so you got to put your analyst hat on for us because nobody probably knows more about Montana and now Montana State than you, because you played here now at the University of Montana for Travis and all that, of course, but also when you were at Cal State Fullerton, who was on the staff there, but Danny Sprinkle, who is now the head coach at Montana State. So I'm not going to ask you to pick or anything like that, but what do you think about Montana State having Danny Sprinkle in the direction of that program compared to what Montana's been, which has been the dominant program now in the Big Sky?
You know, I'm not sure. I think Danny's going to do a really good job over there. Like, my 2 years with him at Fullerton, I really liked what he was about, and I think he's going to bring something special to the Cats over there. But, you know, I won't be rooting for him that much. I mean, he's my guy, and I joked with him that, you know, we're going to take him down and all that. But I do wish him a lot of success. And as hard as it is to say, like, I hope they win some games, you know, just for him.
And tonight, the NBA Finals get underway.
Yeah.
You're a California guy, but are you a Bay Area guy? Who are you rooting for? Who do you got?
You know, I just want to see good basketball. So I think the Warriors will win it. But, you know, Kawhi, he's from Riverside, Inland Empire. So always good to see him do well. Yeah, I'm just a fan of good basketball. So, you know, I like to see a Game 7, you know, 3 overtimes or something like that.
Well, Jamar, we were fans of good basketball, which is why we're fans of yours, among other reasons. But it was a blast to watch you play the couple of years you were here in town, and it's been great to have you in here. We really appreciate it, and all the best success to you as you go, all right?
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
There you go. Jamar Akoh, our ESPN Roundtable subject of it. We certainly appreciate his time coming in here and doing that. Great to talk with him. If you'd like to listen to that again, maybe you missed part of it. If you have people that, you'd like to send it to listen to, SkylineSportsMT.com, where you go for that, the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. You can check it out there along with all the other ESPN Roundtables that we've done each and every week. It is brought to us by Paradise Falls. Coulter, now don't let the fact that it's graying up right now fool you. It's summertime, okay? You got a great patio. Of course, there's indoor seating if it happens to rain. A great spot, especially on the south side of Missoula. Not a ton of places to go. Paradise Falls, one of the Missoula staples.
The deck is open, so you can go sit out on the back deck, enjoy the sunshine. You can even see some of the TVs from the back deck, too, so that's pretty cool. 30 big screen TVs or more than 30 big screen TVs. They got SWX, so you can go down there, have a brew, watch us, watch anything else that's on SWX as well. You can watch the NBA Finals tomorrow night down there as well. They got a new menu. We got one of the best late happy hours in town, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11. $3 draft beers, half-price apps, half-price cocktails. So go check them out. And as of tomorrow, Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen on tap back at Paradise Falls. So go check them out. 3621 Brooks Street. Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Back with baseball, NHL, and NBA after this.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel Nuanez.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive open range AT that we believe is our quietest, smoothest, and best all-season traction tire ever. Or the Reputation, our exclusive high-mileage premium passenger tire. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 open range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Come check out the best late happy hour in town at Paradise Falls. Offering $3 microbrews, half-price cocktails and appetizers, and much more, Paradise Falls late happy hour runs from 9 until 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday nights. If you're in the mood for an evening cocktail or you're just getting off the golf course, swing on by 3621 Brook Street. As the days grow longer, come enjoy the sunset on Paradise Falls' spacious back deck while enjoying a beverage. Paradise Falls, located at 3621 Brook Street, open 7 a.m. to midnight. Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Caleb Hill is going pro. The former University of Montana quarterback and tight end was drafted in the 36th round of the Major League Baseball draft on Thursday afternoon by the Boston Red Sox. The 6'5", 230-pounder came from UM from Blinn Junior College with the expectation to compete for the starting job under center. But he couldn't beat out Reese Phillips or Gresh Jensen. He switched to tight end for his final season. As a left-handed pitcher playing for Texas Premier Baseball, Hill had Division I scholarship offers as a sophomore in high school. He is just the 8th Grizzly to play professional baseball according to Baseball Reference, and he's the most recent since 1970. The UM dropped their varsity baseball program in 1972.
Breaking news, hope he's listening. Montana Athletic Department and Grizzly Sports Properties announced a 3-year contract extension for play-by-play guy, voice of the Grizzlies, Riley Corcoran. Congratulations to Riley. Does a great job. He was the 2018 Montana Sportscaster of the Year and is set to enter his 4th season calling football and men's basketball games as the voice of the Grizz.
Congratulations to Riley. You owe me a Pro V1. Montana State added more mass to its offensive line Thursday with the addition of Nevada transfer Dylan Potter. The 6'6", 300-pound offensive lineman from Elmira, Oregon, was also the 4A heavyweight state wrestling champion in Oregon as a senior. How about that? Welcome back. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 102.9ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula, and SkylineSportsMT.com. What are you shaking your head at?
Nothing, just Twitter banter. Sometimes I just don't understand what people are trying to say.
Sort of like Facebook banter when somebody tells me that somebody's radio's broken.
Yeah, no, I black out on Facebook. I can at least navigate Twitter.
If you would like to give us a call, 329-1899 is the phone number. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. We have been delaying taking our Father's Day caller with a Father's Day story for a stay and play at the Sacagawea Hotel because we have been waiting for Tommy's triumphant return to the studio, which is now in peril. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. If not, maybe we'll get Tui registered tomorrow. We'll figure something out one way or another. In any case, we will continue on with that. Colter, you want to talk a little bit of baseball today? We're sitting here about 60 games in, so, third of the way through the season, something like that. And things are starting to shape up. The first and really only thing that matters is that Craig Kimbrell finally got signed by my Chicago Cubs to come in and close up shop each and every night. A 3-year, $43 million deal with the Cubs. A lot being made of the fact that Craig Kimbrell and I believe Dallas Keuchel have been unsigned for this long, having to do with what you give up in terms of draft picks to get them. And then there's there's a bad look for the for the MLB to not have some of their premier guys in free agency signed, guys who they know can. Well, the Cubs pulled the trigger and have picked up Craig Kimbrell to come in and shore up the bullpen now for Chicago. I'm very happy about this. The King Cobra himself is back in baseball. It makes me very happy. Let him go down there, do his stance, put his arms up, do the thing. But I know that you've been looking at some stuff, reading some stuff about baseball as well, some teams that are absolutely rolling right now.
First of all, I got to give a correction from the first hour. I knew there was 4 Grizz on the list, and then when I was perusing the list, I couldn't find the fourth. The fourth is Robbie Houck. He's a second-team preseason All-American.
There you go.
Don't mean to leave Robbie out. Shout out to our good friend Pete for texting in and letting us know. Baseball, I read kind of a quarter season update in the New Sports Illustrated, and there was some actually really striking statistics. The stats that popped out to me. First of all, there's a new analytic called the Truest Result, which is either a home run, a walk, or a strikeout. Right now, 60 games into the baseball season, the Truest Result has happened. Are you ready for this? 46% of the time. Either a walk, a strikeout, or a home run. That's astounding.
It's a huge amount.
And this whole article is just about the way that analytics have shifted the game in both positive and negative ways. It used to be that only the most premier and fearsome power hitters in the league would garner shifts. Now, there's so much video and there's so much scouting available on everybody. You might be somebody that gets 90 at-bats for the whole year. You might come up to pinch hit in the 7th inning of an afternoon game, and boom, they got analytics. They know where to play the shortstop. They have a specific spot for the shortstop to take away where you most prevalently hit it. Weird. But also good for defensive baseball, but I think bad overall for the game. The other things that were striking were the home runs per game were up. If they continue at this rate, it will first of all be the highest rate of home runs per game in the history of baseball, but it will also be the 4th time in 5 years that has happened. Highest home runs per game. But the thing is, I think that while you would say, well, more home runs is definitely better for the game. Well, it goes hand in hand with the fact that strikeouts, and it goes hand in hand with the fact that this is the first time in the history of baseball where hitting the ball in the air is what guys try to do and what is advantageous to you as a hitter. Because it used to be hit the ball low and hard, right? But now everybody's shifted for every single at bat. So hitting the ball low and hard, and the athletes that play in the middle infield are so good, you can't get singles anymore. Singles are a lost art.
Yesterday, Dodgers Diamondbacks. Cody Bellinger comes up to play. They put the full shift on to the right side of the infield. So you got 3 guys. They had 3 guys. The first baseman and the second baseman were there. They brought the shortstop over. So they moved the second baseman basically in the middle of first and second. The shortstop is there. You know what they did with the third baseman? Put him in the outfield. 4 outfielders, just like your dad's softball games, sitting out there, left, right, left middle, left center, right center. Literally not a human being between second and third, all the way to 2/3 of the way to the wall. I mean, all it takes is just a horrible bunt, right? The bunt that the bat doesn't deaden when the ball hits it. Just hit a good hard bunt, get it past the pitcher, and you're out of your way. Bellinger, he's a lefty, so he tries to kind of slap it. Like he tried to beat the shift by just slapping the ball down the thing. Couldn't do it. Hit it foul. And I don't recall whether he struck out or hit into the shift, but the shift worked. And I'm sitting there going, well, you can't bunt? Or what's the matter? What's going on? Like it appeared to be as easy pickings to get an on base as you could possibly find, and it didn't work. It was remarkable. And I've not seen that one. I haven't seen the one where they go 4 outfielders and then shift the infielder where there's no chance. There's no chance over on the left side. But anyway, they did.
Yeah, the other astounding stat was when they only started tracking the prevalence of 97-plus mile-per-hour fastballs about 6 years ago. But 6 years ago, there was 57 guys in the big leagues that touched 97 at least once.
Yep.
117, so more than twice as many in the span of just 6 years. So basically what we've seen a revitalization of pitching. When the steroid era was going crazy and everybody was hitting all these bombs, I thought that everybody was blaming it on just roids, but there also was right at the end of when the Major League Baseball decided to add a bunch of expansion teams, which then in turn diluted the pool of talent, especially when it came to pitchers. So I thought that when everybody was hitting 50 home runs, part of it was the juice that they were taking, but also part of it was because the pitchers sucked. And now the pitchers don't suck.
Could be.
But I just think that it's so interesting because, again, it seems like in premise more home runs would be good for baseball. But now, it's like we talk about with Robert Chase all the time. A home run doesn't mean a rally. It's just a rally killer. You try to get 2 guys on base, hit a 3-run home run, then the inning's over. We don't ever see double after double, guys running around the bases. Oh, it's a 6-run inning. It's a 9-run inning. We batted around. Nope. Just, this guy got a walk. This guy, manufactured a hit and run. This guy hit a bomb. Inning over. It's a weird place that baseball's at because it's become so complicated that it's as good as it's ever been and also as the least entertaining it's ever been.
Yeah, maybe. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Plenty more to say about this. Good thing baseball season's long. We will get into more of it. Here's what doesn't happen every day. Game 5 of the NHL Stanley Cup Final. We'll tell you what's going on next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, pump it up, pump it up.
When you're thirsty, Town Pump has your back. Stop in today for Miller and Coors 18-pack cans for $16.99. We've also got 5-hour energy shots, 2 for $5. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
The splash of launching a new boat, the quiet of a favorite campsite, the noisy fun of a family barbecue on your new deck. Whatever summer sounds like to you, make it happen with a personal loan from Farmers State Bank. 9 locations to serve you, or start the loan application process online at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel and Nuanez.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
You ready for this, Coulter? You ready for this? The Seattle Mariners started the season 13-2. You got that?
I got it. I was there.
Since then, they're 13-37.
Great.
They lost like 18 times more games over their last 13 wins than they did over their first 13.
I mean, if I was a Mariners fan, which I told myself that'll never happen again.
We don't have time.
Yeah, I know.
Tutel Nuanez, we're broadcasting live from the Chris Polaris Studios. Chris Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83, and Sealy online at chrispolaris.com. If you miss anything in the show, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes and on Spotify. It is there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Go listen, rate, review, and give the sponsors some love, will you? Game 5, Stanley Cup Finals, starts in 6 minutes on NBC television. Bruins, Zdeno Chara back on the ice today. Game time decision. Game time is basically right now. How the Boston Bruins are a minus 310 favorite in this, I don't know. I expect them to win, but minus 310, let me get the Blues.
Good news. Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass. 3217 Brooks or 549-0608. Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel Nuanez.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.